either Comirnaty, which is the Pfizer-BioNTech messenger RNA COVID-19 vaccine, or Spikevax, which is the messenger RNA vaccine from Moderna, may be considered in people 18 years and above, at least 6 months after the second dose of the same vaccine. This recommendation has allowed the introduction of boosters in a flexible and staggered way across the member states, taking into account their epidemiological and vaccine effectiveness data. Data with respect to the impact of boosters in real life has started to emerge, signaling that booster doses, as expected, restore protection against infection and disease in times of Delta variant dominance. The recommendation of administering a booster dose after at least 6 months from the last dose of the primary series derives from the available data that supported such interval between primary series and booster. However, it would be fully understood if member states would prefer to exert some flexibility with respect to the booster dosing interval and would also consider an earlier time point for administration of the booster. Booster doses for Vaxzevria and Janssen COVID-19 vaccines are also under consideration. However, it is premature to confirm if the current data would be sufficient to support a recommendation. We are also looking at mix and match booster strategies where the booster vaccine is different from the vaccine used for primary vaccination. Some academic studies have been published supporting these strategies both from an immunological and real-life protection perspective. It is of note that intervals shorter than 6 months were also studied in the context of these studies, and we expect to reach a conclusion on this by the end of November. We are also working to extend the authorized messenger RNA vaccine to younger age groups. Last week, EMA started evaluating an application to extend the use of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine Spikevax to children aged 6 to 11. The evaluation of a similar application for the use of Pfizer-BioNTech Comirnaty 5 to 11 years old is already well underway, and we have been able to advance the timeline and now expect that the CHMP will be able to give a recommendation later this month, possibly by the end of next week. We will communicate on the outcome of both evaluations as always. Regarding treatments, we have made good progress since our last briefing. We are happy to report that the first 2 monoclonal antibodies medicine for COVID-19, Ronapreve and Rekirona, have received a marketing authorization. These are the first treatment for COVID-19 to be authorized since Remdesivir in June 2020, and the first monoclonal antibodies to receive a full marketing authorization with a COVID-19 indication. Both treatments have demonstrated the ability to significantly reduce hospitalization and deaths in COVID-19 patients that are at risk of severe COVID-19. In the case of Ronapreve, data from a study showed that it reduces the chances of becoming sick with COVID-19 in people who are in close contact with a household member infected with SARS-CoV-2. And these data are supportive of a prophylactic use of this product, which also would be of value for people who might not respond very well to vaccination. We also announced today that EMA has started evaluating an application for a marketing authorization for another monoclonal antibody, Xevudy. Xevudy, similarly to Ronapreve and Rekirona, is intended for the treatment of adults and adolescents with COVID-19 who do not require supplemental oxygen and who are at increased risk of progressing to severe COVID-19. EMA will assess the benefits and risks of Xevudy under a reduced timeline and could issue an opinion within 2 months, depending on whether the data submitted are sufficiently robust or whether further information is required to support the evaluation and the conclusion. We are pleased to see progress with other types of treatments, including oral antivirals. We are showing promising results. Indeed, we announced last week that we are reviewing the available data on the use of the oral antiviral medicine Molnupiravir to support national authorities who may decide on the use of this medicine to treat COVID-19 before it is factually authorized. The CHMP will issue a scientific opinion in the shortest possible time frame for you, a member, to consider when making decision on the use of this medicine at national level before a formal marketing authorization is issued. This review is being carried out alongside a rolling review of the data on quality, efficacy and safety for molnupiravir, which, when sufficient, will allow a possible application for authorization. As I mentioned in our last briefing, it should take less than normal to evaluate an eventual application because of the work already done during the rolling review, and we are aiming at a conclusion before the end of this year. The CHMP is also looking at Paxlovid, which is the oral antiviral treatment developed by Pfizer. This medicine is showing some promising preliminary results, and in view of the critical situation in many member states, the EMA executive director has also asked the CHMP to look at this medicine to give advice on its emergency use in member states prior to a possible marketing authorization. The procedure will start tomorrow. In parallel, we have been providing advice and guidance to the company to ensure that they generate robust and high-quality data. In addition to monoclonal antibodies and oral antivirals, there are also 3 immunomodulators under review by the EMA, for which we expect to arrive at the first opinion very soon. We are optimistic that these different classes of medicines and the different therapeutic approaches they represent provide a wide range of options that is required to treat a complex disease such as COVID-19 and its consequences. Public health measures such as social distancing and hygiene and wearing face masks should also be followed very carefully so that we protect ourselves and the others. While our main attention is still on COVID-19, we should not forget about other seasonal diseases. We encourage everybody who is offered a flu vaccine to get the shot and protect themselves, their family, friends, and colleagues. Preliminary data indicate the flu vaccine can be co-administered with COVID-19 vaccines. Before we wrap up, I would like to take this opportunity to mention another public health crisis, albeit one that gets much less attention at present. Today marks European Antibiotic Awareness Day. According to the current estimates, each year 33,000 people die in the EU due to infection caused by bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. If antibiotics were to no longer work to treat or prevent infection, our ability to perform even simple medical procedures would be compromised. To prevent this prospect from becoming a reality, we urgently need new and innovative medicine that can fight resistant bacteria and also promote the responsible use of the antibiotics that are already available to preserve their effectiveness. Please do check our campaign to promote the responsible use of antibiotics on our website, or the messages and initiatives that we are promoting together with other European agencies and institutions via the social media. Thank you. I will stop here in order to take as much as possible time for your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cavalieri. We will now take questions from the floor. So if you wish to ask a question, please click on the respective icon at the bottom of the WebEx window to raise your hand. And when I give you the floor, please turn on your camera while we unmute you. You can then ask your question if your microphone has been enabled. The first question today comes from Danny Kemp from AFP. Danny, please go ahead.
Hello, thanks for taking my question. Can I ask you a rather obvious question, but one which I feel is on a lot of people's lips, and I think a clear answer would be good, would be a good countermeasure to disinformation. The question is that if these vaccines are so good and so efficacious as we're being told, and vaccination rates are generally good in some countries, up to 90% in Ireland, for example, why are we having this spike? Why are the infection rates increasing so badly? And what medicinally can be done about it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Cavalieri, please.
Yeah, of course, with the Delta variant that is so transmissible, we are seeing in Europe a considerable increase in the number of cases. We are in the midst of what is called the fourth wave. We are seeing an excessive number of cases of COVID, including severe COVID and hospitalization or admission in the intensive care unit, particularly in the unvaccinated. We should not forget that still in many member states, there is a large portion of the population, including subjects at risk above 50 years of age, that are not yet vaccinated, and they are the ones that are most likely to go to the hospital and suffer from the consequences of severe COVID-19, including mortality. So we should not forget that we should close this gap and make sure that as many people as possible will get vaccinated. At the same time, it's well known that there is no vaccine that is 100% effective. So with this vaccine that has really good efficiency in protecting us, particularly from severe disease, which is above 90%, still this means that if a lot of people get infected, few of them, including the vaccinated, may end up hospitalized. So we should not forget that it's very important that we do our best to reduce the chance that this virus is spreading, and having high vaccination coverage is essential. Also, non-pharmaceutical intervention will play an important role, and this should be part of the action that member states should be taking in order to make sure that we reduce the burden of disease, we'll reduce the circulation of this virus, particularly during the winter season.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from Tara Tomovic from Euronews Serbia. Tara, the floor is yours.
Hi, greetings from Belgrade. Actually, I have two questions. First one is, do you plan to issue some kind of recommendation for EU countries which do not allow entry for travelers with 2 doses of vaccine that are not recognized in the EU and a booster dose that is? So, because currently there are some countries that ask for 2 doses to be vaccines that are recognized in the EU, and often embassies here in Belgrade don't know whether we can enter their country with a booster dose of a recognized vaccine, or we need 2 doses. So last time we talked about mix and match. So do you plan some kind of recommendation that will help us in third countries? And my second question is, how far have you come with the rolling review of Sputnik V, and when can we expect some progress with Sinopharm? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara. You know that travel topics are not really, and certificates are not really in our remit. But on the mix and match, I'm going to give the question to Dr. Cavalieri, and we follow up then with Dr. Sweeney.
Yeah, we will be looking at all the evidence that is available also with respect to vaccines that are not currently authorized in the EU, and we'll try to come up with some scientific evaluation in this respect. But of course, it's pretty obvious, as already stated, that it's very difficult for us to come up with clear-cut recommendation around vaccines that are not yet authorized by the EMA, and we have not completed yet our assessment.
Thank you very much. And the question on Sputnik, I give to Dr. Sweeney.
So thank you. So the evaluation, the rolling review of Sputnik is continuing. Whilst that's ongoing, I really can't comment on the status, but we will update when the next steps arrive. But we need to continue the interaction with the applicants and evaluate the data as they provide it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next question comes from Annette Bertolde from Latvian TV. Annette, please.
2 questions related to vaccine safety. First question is, are there any new signals that COVID vaccines can exacerbate, reinforce existing diseases for the chronic patients? And the second question is, why are there differences between what EMA concludes and what the local governments are doing? Is it justified decision not to vaccinate young people with Moderna? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first question is for Dr. Georgi Genov, who can respond to the question on the chronic diseases.
Okay, thank you for the question. With regards to chronic diseases, and that's a broad range of conditions, in normal circumstances, these patients will have a fluctuation of their disease, exacerbation, what we call flare-ups. We have no data to indicate that COVID vaccines would trigger such flare-ups. And I have to say, we have accumulated a huge amount of information. We have more than 550 million doses administered in the EU, and then many more in different jurisdictions. So a large amount of data currently not pointing to any signal. I think we need to also note that people with chronic diseases are at increased risk of severe outcomes when it comes to infections, including COVID infections. And also, if you look at the broader picture, the strain that this pandemic has put on the health systems has adversely affected the management of chronic disease. So all these aspects considered, this again highlights the need to get patients fully vaccinated, and especially in this vulnerable population. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Genov. And the second question on our recommendations in member states, I'm going to give to Dr. Cavalieri.
Yeah, so our evaluation essentially goes into defining what is the benefit-risk balance for the different vaccines across the different age groups. And as you know, like the messenger RNAs are approved from the age of 12 years onwards. And it remains that from our perspective, the benefit risk is positive from 12 years onwards. Then it's up to member states, based on the vaccines that they have available nationally, to decide whether to use preferentially one vaccine or the other. That is fully legitimate, and it's their choice to pick up the vaccine that they consider the best option for the different populations.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Lorenzo Vendemiale, a freelancer from Italy. I think you work for Rai Tre. Lorenzo, please.
Yes, that's it. It's from Rai Italian Public Television. Hi, everybody. We had access to some internal documents from the Pfizer trial that the BMJ published a couple of weeks ago, and that shows some kind of violation in the protocols. I'm sure you read the story, you read about it. First of all, we would like to know if you feel to reassure people that this kind of violation reported do not affect the safety and the efficacy of the COVID vaccine from Pfizer. And this is the first. And second is, but you knew about that? EMA received any complaints or were totally unaware of this story? And since Ventavia, the company involved, is still working with Pfizer in the current trials for boosters or children, for example, if you are concerned about it and what EMA can do about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. Both questions on the BMJ study I'll give to Dr. Fergus Sweeney.
So thank you. These are good questions, and we've looked carefully at the issues that were raised. I think a number of things important to emphasize, but first of all, in looking carefully with our assessors, both at the information that was published and following contacts with the US authorities and with the company, we are satisfied that there is no impact on the safety or efficacy of the vaccines. As you may have seen, the particular site involved had recruited a relatively small number in the overall picture of the vaccinees across the whole study. So its impact would have been small, and following the questioning, they have put in place corrective measures which have remedied the situation, and therefore we're satisfied with the outcome of the results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm now taking a question from Maria Psara from EFSIN in Greece.
Hello, thanks for the floor. I'm Maria Psara with Star TV Greece and EFSIN. I have a question. There is a discussion in the EU on the COVID pass related to the third dose. Do you think that the third dose should be a precondition for the renewal of the COVID pass? And you said that you don't want to comment on the COVID pass and travels, but I'm asking you mainly about the antibodies. Do you know exactly when they decrease in our body after the second vaccination, and when we are unprotected? So the question is connected to the third dose and to antibodies from the two first doses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. And I'm going to give the question to Dr. Cavalieri. As I said, we are not going to talk about the certificate, but we can definitely talk about the data on the vaccines.
Yeah, indeed. And what I can say that from the scientific perspective, we are monitoring very closely all the studies that are emerging, both from an immunological perspective, but also in terms of protection from real life. And what we are seeing is that the protection that initially is quite high, particularly with the messenger RNA vaccines, over time tends to decrease, particularly in terms of protection from infection and mild disease, while protection from severe disease is maintained for a much longer period of time, and overall is still quite remarkable in the majority of the population. But what we're seeing is that antibodies, they tend to decay quite rapidly over time, and this is driving this reduction in protection that we're seeing, particularly from infection and mild disease. But let me stress that protection does not drop down to zero all of a sudden. There is a continuum in the decrease of protection, but still relevant protection can be maintained over time. So the booster doses are supposed to restore the initial protection that was seen after the completion of the primary vaccination, including also protection from infection that, as we just said, is so important in order to make sure that we reduce the circulation of this virus. Now we are learning exactly when to give the boosters and whether boosters should be given, first of all, in those that are more vulnerable and the elderly that will show, because of immunosenescence, a decrease in the level of antibodies that is faster than in younger adults. And that's why different member states have been putting in place slightly different vaccination campaigns, but with the aim of making sure that the vulnerable that are more at risk, or where the risk is becoming too high and unacceptable of breakthrough infection, are then protected with the booster dose. And we will see a continuum in data emerging that would corroborate the fact that booster doses sooner or later should be given to the majority of the population in order to restore the protection that we have seen initially after the primary vaccination.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from Helen Collis from Politico. Helen, please.
Thank you. I'm interested in finding out if the agency is in any talks with antibody manufacturers about pre-exposure prophylaxis use of their treatments. I'm thinking about people who cannot generate a natural immune response to vaccination, or potentially vaccine hesitant populations. I see that AstraZeneca has data with its Evusheld in this indication, and I know it's under rolling review. I don't know if you're considering the pre-exposure prophylaxis indication specifically, but is this something that the agency is in talks with any antibody makers? Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. The pre-exposure prophylaxis question I give to Dr. Cavalieri.
Yeah, indeed. And as said before, Ronapreve has been approved also for prophylaxis in the broad term. So the indication is not just covering post-exposure prophylaxis in the context of household contacts of people that might be infected with SARS-CoV-2, but also has been broadened to cover also pre-exposure prophylaxis, which means that these antibodies could be used also for a more broader prevention use, which indeed could be valuable, particularly for immunocompromised people or vulnerable groups that we know are not responding very well to vaccination. So this is a potential important addition, particularly in these niches. And also, as you stated, AstraZeneca has just released today data from their ongoing clinical trial looking into pre-exposure prophylaxis. And Evusheld is one of those products that is under rolling review. And we will hope in the coming weeks and most likely beginning of next year to proceed rapidly towards a conclusion of the process for marketing authorization.
Thank you very much. I'm now taking a question of Victoria English from MedNew. Victoria, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm asking a question about the very interesting announcement this week and last week that Pfizer and Merck are allowing their antivirals to be distributed at a low cost via an agreement with the patent pool. I'm wondering whether there are any regulatory implications of this. For example, being able to obtain more real-world data on the effectiveness of these antivirals.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I'm going to give that question to Dr. Sweeney.
So I think that the fact that the companies are able to widen the access to their vaccines is very good. Of course, we're not a party to those discussions. That's these issues of patent pooling, etc., are outside the remit of EMA. Clearly, with any medicine, it's important to be able to follow the data that are generated as the medicine is used, whether that's inside Europe or in the wider world, and we do exchange data with authorities across the world on the safety of products. So certainly that will form part, wherever these medicines are used, that will form part of the picture of both the safety and the effectiveness for these products that we're able to evaluate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next question comes from Maria Aroni from Greek TV station Antenna Free TV in Greece.
Hello. Thank you very much for the floor. I have a question on vaccination against COVID for children and teenagers from 5 to 18 years old. I would like to ask if you have conclusive data concerning pericarditis as a side effect of vaccination. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give this question to Georgi Genov.
Okay, thank you for the question. The risk of pericarditis and myocarditis with mRNA vaccines is established, and as we've communicated previously, it's higher in males under the age of 30, and we have seen higher incidence between 18 and 25 years of age. Now, this is very similar to the classical myocarditis, which is caused by other infections, where very similar graph, males under the 30s with a similar peak between 18 and 25 has been seen. Data with regards to under 12 and post-vaccination exposure is still not available. But one could consider that following the graph, the background rates we see for classic myocarditis, it might very well be this rare side effect might be even rare in this patient population. But this is just an extrapolation at this stage. I think what is important is to emphasize that this is a rare side effect, and also the accumulating data shows that the clinical outcome, so the evolution of this myocarditis, is rather benign. Hospitalizations will last 2 to 4 days, and the condition will resolve with rest and conservative therapy. Now, we still need to get a date on a long-term outcome, so what happens at 3 months and 6 months, but so far we've seen encouraging results that the condition resolves without any sequelae. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just noticed that we also have 2 questions in the chat. The first one is from Danny Kemp. He asks when we expect to start a rolling review of the Pfizer antiviral. Dr. Cavalieri?
Yeah, I think we are in discussion with the company, and we are aiming to start a discussion on a potential rolling review as soon as possible. As stated, we are starting from giving our advice to help member states with potential emergency use at national level, but the next step will be indeed to move along quite rapidly with rolling review and a potential authorization.
Thank you very much. The other question was a follow-up question from Lorenzo Vendemiale. He wanted to actually remind us of the second part of his question, where he wanted to know whether EMA is concerned since Ventavia is continuing to provide trial results also on booster and children's trials. So perhaps Dr. Sweeney, you can respond to that question.
Apologies. We have looked very carefully at the data and also at the actions that the company Ventavia took to remedy the situation. And based on that, we understand these actions have been put in place prior to the commencement of the booster and pediatric studies. So we don't have concerns that they would impact that data. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are now taking a last question from Annette Bertolde from Latvian TV. Annette? The second question. We cannot hear you. You have to unmute. Well, we have to unmute you. Can you please unmute Annette? Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah, the last question. How many reported fatal events in eurovigilance have been shown to be causally related to vaccination against COVID right now at the moment? Do you have such statistics? Thank you.
Thanks, and this question can be responded to by Dr. Genov.
Thank you. It's a helpful question, I think, because it is important to clarify how do we interpret the data we hold in eurovigilance. In eurovigilance, we have spontaneous reports. So these are events that occurred and have been reported by patients, healthcare professionals. I think this is the first thing to say. This is suspected adverse drug reactions, so they are not necessarily linked to the vaccination, but they would more likely occur after vaccination, so what we call temporal association, but that doesn't mean that they're caused by the vaccination. Now, we review those reports. There's a number of techniques we apply, statistical techniques, careful review of case reports, and we also conduct observed to expected analysis. Then we put all the information together, which is assessed by a safety committee. If needed, we involve additional experts, and then any any ADRs that is likely related to the vaccination will be reflected in our labels. So all the ADRs from eurovigilance or other data sources for that matter that have been considered related to vaccination will be reflected in our label. So that's, instead of numbers, maybe a more precise answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are now closing this press briefing. Thank you very much for your questions and for attending the briefing. And also a big thank you to my colleagues here who participated today. Please note that the next press briefing will only take place in 3 weeks' time. That means the next regular press briefing. And that is the week commencing 6 December. And on another note, before we close, next week on 25 November, EMA will hold its 4th public stakeholder meeting on COVID-19 vaccines and therapeutics. And this meeting is meant for the general public, but if you're interested in listening in, you can find the relevant information on our website. And as always, if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to follow up with the press office at press@ema.europa.eu. Thanks again and goodbye for today.